Okay. Today, going to start from Hashlakis on the bottom of Lamed Zion. It's 37b. Maybe about 8, 9, 10 lines from the bottom. 7, 8, 9 lines from the bottom. Okay, so take Hashem that's your book, learn Torah every day. In the spots of our learning, we should have the base of Migdash. Just learning for Shleima, for my father, and for Naftali ben Menachem Bela, and how's Uriel, Gabriel, and doing okay? Anything?
Baruch Hashem, he's improving day by day. Yum, yum. Thank you.
Okay. So the last Mishnah that we had was talking about things that are prohibited to eat but are permissible to have benefit from. Those things included like milk that was the non-Jew, and bread and oil, and Rebbe, it turns out Rebbe or Rebbe Yehuda Nasiya allowed the oil. And then we spoke about cooked vegetables and pickled foods that were pickled with wine and other different types of fish. So we start over here with the cooked vegetables, the cooked foods. Bashlakis. How do you know that this is prohibited to eat if it was cooked by a non-Jew? So Amar Reb Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Reb Chia bar Abba, a great student of Rabbi Yochanan. He says in the name of his teacher, Amakra, says in the pasuk, Eichel bekesef taspireni, v'achalti mayim bekesef titanli v'shasisa. Is talking about the Jewish people wanted to pass through Sichain, the land of Sichain. They didn't get permission, and then they went to war, but they said, we're going to buy our own food. We're going to buy food with money, and for money, you'll give me water and we'll drink, and I'll drink. So there was a comparison here between the food and the water. So again, this is going to be food from a non-Jew. So it's kamayim, just like the water. Ma'amayim shleiner stana, just like water didn't change. It's in the same form. Afeichel shleiner stana, also, the only food that we would ever eat would be raw food. That's in its original form. It doesn't mean that it's raw. It just means that it's in its same form. Alamiyata, if that's the case, that means that anything that maybe it does mean that it's raw. It would have to be raw. So, if the only thing that you can eat from a non-Jew is raw foods, so then what about toasted grains? Seems like toasted grains would be a problem. Well, maybe it is a problem. But we have a brisa. It says if the non-Jew took wheat and he toasted it, you're allowed to eat those grains. They would eat it like popcorn that wasn't popped. It would just get toasted, like roasted corn.
Roasted pumpkin seeds.
Right. Right. Ella kamayim. Rather, we have a different comparison, like water. Mamaim shleiner stanim rebiyasin, that didn't change its form. Afeichel shleiner stanim rebiyasi, also food that didn't change its form. So, in other words, the problem is not now. It's not that it needs to be raw. It doesn't have to be raw. It could actually be cooked, but it can't change its form. The non-Jew changed its form, so in other words, the toasted grain is not a problem because it's still in the same form. It's just raw versus toasted, but it still looks the same. So, Alamiyat, if that's the case, so what do you mean to say if he grinds it, that really changes the form? That's going to be aser. So maybe that's so. Maybe you need a Jewish grinder. Tanya, but we have a brisa that says chitim lasan klayis, wheat that was toasted. But you're allowed to buy flour from a non-Jew, even though he ground it. No, he changed the form. Elakamayim, rather like water. Mamayim shleiner maybe yasan they are. You have to add in the word al they are. It didn't change the form through fire. Not talking about just grinding grain. It's talking about that through fire it didn't change the form. So too, food The only food that you would be allowed to eat from the non-Jew is food that didn't change its form through cooking. Gemara asks, which, by the way, so it didn't change its form through cooking.
Right.
That means the toasted grain still is the same form, and the ground flour is not through cooking, even though it changes form, but it's not through cooking. It would only be other things. So that would be our source for cooked vegetables. You tell me, what about the vessels? Yeah, but they don't need the table vessels, right? Remember?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to ask a different question. I thought you were going to ask, what about the taste that's absorbed in the vessels? It's not kosher. Maybe we'll see shortly. But the Gemara says, but all of this is made up, midi arksiv. Does it say in the verse anything about fire? It says a comparison between food and water, and you're throwing in fire here. That has nothing to do with anything. Ella midrabanan. Rather, the source of this is all rabbinic. Kras machtabalma, and the pasuk is just the support, but it's not really based on the verse. Now, Rashi has a very interesting comment here. He says that the reason why the rabbis made a decree is because we should not be accustomed to eating with the non-Jews, because they may feed us non-kosher food. Taisvis over here says, Rashi says davar tamei, which I assume means not kosher. I don't know if it means tamei, like as in impure, or means not kosher. It could, that term could go both ways. Taisvis says that it's not about the non-kosher food. It has to do with marriage, like as you heard before many times. And that's what Rashi says in the Mishnah. Go back to the Mishnah. Rashi says Vashlaka is Kula Mishum Chasnas, because of marriage. So Rashi contradicted himself over here between Reb Avram bar David, which is probably one of the Rivids. The name Rivid, there's like 3 different Rivids, but one of them, I guess the first one, he says that it's only usher if the non-Jew cooked it in his own house. But if you have a non-Jew in your own house, then you don't have any problem. First of all, you're not going to marry the daughter of the person that's your house help, that's cooking in your house, and you also don't have to be concerned that they brought in non-kosher food into the house because they're using your ingredients. However, Rabbeinu Tam argues on him. He says that once the non-Jew is cooking, it doesn't matter. The sages didn't make a difference between if they're cooking in your house or if they're cooking in their house, because there's always a concern. Okay, so machlekes over here, Rabbeinu Tam and the Ravid about this, and it's actually brought in Shulchan Aruch that house help may have a leniency. We're strict. I think we're strict. If the non-Jewish maid turns on the fire, I think we're strict. Okay, it's not a halacha share. If it comes up, you have to ask. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak Amar Rav. Rav Shmuel says the name of Rav. Yeah, you follow? You have to be careful because. Okay. Sorry, I distracted you. Shmuel bar Yitzchak says the name of Rav. Anything that's eaten raw doesn't have the prohibition of being cooked by a non-Jew. An example of something raw would be fruits, vegetables that are eaten raw. They don't need to be cooked. Applesauce. Well, you can eat the apple. Carrots nowadays could be eaten raw. Carrots. That's a question if the fish changed. The fish is eaten raw today. Yeah.
When you describe household help, I was wondering how is that in comparison like with the restaurant they hired Jewish restaurant would be the cleaning, the working, like it's not house.
I think the opposite. The restaurant is worse. You need a mashgiach in the restaurant for many reasons. One of them is for bishalakim. Today they have some leniencies with the pilot light. They get a Jew to light the pilot. If it's gas, I don't know. They have actually some places where they use they can turn on the oven with their phone. Mashiach could be in California and you can turn on the oven in New York or just on his phone. Yeah, so that's the text message says, say we need the oven on. Turn it on. Okay, so anything that's eaten raw doesn't have bishul avdikichavim. Surah Masnachi, that's what it was stated in Surah. That's how they learned it in Surah. That Surah happens to be the area where Rav was from. And this is Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak saying in the name of Rav. In Pumpadisa Masnachi. In Pumpadisa, they taught the same statement, but different. I'm Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak Amarav. Anything that doesn't go on a king's table, be eaten together with the main dish, together with the bread, so that doesn't have bishalakim. What would that be? Potato chips. You don't eat potato chips with your chicken and rice. Chicken and rice is the main dish. That's like the steak, whatever it is. But what else would you put on there? You would put maybe like a baked potato. What would go with that? Maybe some corn or something would go on. All of that would be. Now there's a discussion if it's eaten in a different form, like the potato from potato to the potato chips. Do you say it's the same? And therefore, potato chips need to be bishul akum, bishul Yisrael. It cannot be bishul akum. That's a discussion. Many Chabad people are strict not to eat Wise and Lay's and all those potato chips because even though you would never serve potato chips with the main course, but the potatoes you would. So therefore, you need to be strict about that type of food. So, okay. My Binaya, what's the difference between these two versions of Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, the name of Rav, the Surah version and the Pumpadisa version, eaten raw or going on the king's table? Ikabenayo, the difference is Dagam Ktanim V'Ardi V'Dais, how do they translate Ardi? Small fish, and dice is like a porridge. What is Ardi? Mushrooms. Ardi is mushrooms. Apparently, mushrooms need to be cooked. So small fish, those days needed to be cooked. Mushrooms and porridge needs to be cooked. Rashi has a French word for mushrooms. Okay, so according to the first opinion that says that anything that's eaten raw doesn't have a problem with bishalakim, that means if it needs to be cooked, it does have a problem with bishalakim. Which means all of these items here are asur if a non-Jew cooks it. Small fish, sardines, or something like that, can't have sardines because what's it called? They need to be cooked. And mushrooms need to be cooked, and porridge needs to be cooked. So therefore, if a non-Jew cooks it, it's going to be asur. According to the second opinion, that says no, it needs to be something that would be served at the king's table together with his main dish. So these small fish sardines would not be served as the main dish, and neither would porridge. So this would be mutter according to the second opinion. Amar Ravasi, Amar Rav, Ravasi says in the name of Rav, Dagam Ketana Maluchim Ein Ben Bishuli Kechavim, small fish that are pickled, salted small fish. So these are eaten raw. So therefore, there's no problem of bishalakim because they're eaten raw. They're just salt on them. Amar Rav Yosef says in Talmud Maybe Kechavim, if a non-Jew roasts them, Soimach Aleim Yisrael Mishum Meruvi Tavshilin. When it comes to Yom Tov, if there's a 2-day Yom Tov, you're not allowed to cook for the first day. Sorry, not a 2-day Yom Tov. You're not, if there's a Yom Tov and Shabbos, you're not allowed to cook from Yom Tov to prepare for Shabbos. And unless you started beforehand, unless you have a cooked food beforehand that you designate for Shabbos. It's 2 reasons. One, because you don't want to forget about Shabbos. Another one is because you don't want to prepare from Yom Tov to Shabbos. You don't want the whole Yom Tov to be just cooking for Shabbos. So if you have food before, that resolves the issue, and it's called the Erev Tavshilin. Well, if let's say you have food that's eaten raw, and you cook it, is that considered a cooked dish, or is that considered not a cooked dish? So Rabbi Yosef says it's considered a cooked dish. Even though we said that there's no problem with bishul akum, nevertheless we said that it's considered a cooked dish. But if you mix it with this type of flour, with this fish juice and oil, this fish oil, together with flour, then it would be a problem. It'd be usher. Well, the flour needs to be cooked. You can't eat raw flour. So the Gemara says pshita. Of course, you need to cook the flour, and that's going to be a problem. Bishlak. Well, the Gemara says, "Well, the mahar sneaker." Could have thought that the fish is the main thing, and the fish is eaten raw. Kamash malan, or the fish oil. Kamash malan kimcheker. It's coming to teach me that no, the flour is the main thing. So when you have ingredients that are put together, one of them requires bishul yisrael, and one of them doesn't require. You have to look at what's the main ingredient. Follow? Okay, we're holding now. Amar Rav Bruna, Amar Rav. Rav Bruna says in the name of Rav. So far, Rav's been the main opinion here. Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, Rav Asi, and now Rav Bruna, all in the name of Rav. Says like this: says, let's say a non-Jew lights the meadow on fire. You know, they have these big burning. They burn fields to clear it out. So let's see, and then what you're left with is grasshoppers that have been scorched. Can't eat the grasshoppers there. Even think they're kosher, but it's bishul akum because it was cooked by a non-Jew. He lit the place on fire. What are you talking about? What's the case? If it's because now you can't tell the difference between the kosher ones and the non-kosher grasshoppers, so why do you tell me a story about a non-Jew that lit the fire? Even if a Jew lit the fire, you wouldn't be allowed to eat it because you don't know what's kosher, what's not kosher. Rather, the issue over here is not because you can't tell. You know that the grasshoppers are kosher. Problem is, it was cooked by a non-Jew. Gemara says, would you prohibit such a thing? You would say that that's prohibited. We move over to Rabbi Yochanan now. He says, there's a non-Jew, to get the hair off the animal. Sometimes it would scorch it. The chickens, we're not allowed to do this, but to get the feathers off, it would use hot water. It helps the feathers come up. But not in the kosher places. Because they didn't salt it yet. Put hot water on it, then it's going to cook the meat together with the blood, and then it's never going to be kosher. So that's why the kosher chickens always have more feathers than we don't have the same way of removing them. So, but here what happened was he was burning the hair off the head of the animal, and the ear of the animal got cooked a little bit from the scorching off the hair. So we say over here that if the non-Jew did this to the animal, you're allowed to eat the animal shechted. You're allowed to eat that little piece that's on the ear, or even the piece that's on the ear, because we say, even though that was cooked, that piece on the ear was cooked, but just by the non-Jew himself, it's still permissible. Well, why should it be permissible? The non-Jew cooked it. He says, Amra Alma, we see lavuri sar kamachavin, because his intention wasn't to cook. His intention was to remove the hair, and if it just gets cooked as a byproduct of what he was trying to do, that's not a problem. So achinami, we should say the same thing. He was trying to clear out the meadow to be able to plant something else or to clear a piece of land. So he lit it on fire to clear it out. Now you're telling me that it's all bishalakim? No, his intention wasn't cooking. Mar says, really, the problem is kosher. You can't tell the difference between which one. You burnt the OU and OK off the grasshoppers. You can't tell. There's no sign anymore on it. So the label got burnt off. So you can't, I don't know which one's kosher. So why do you say it was a non-Jew? Even if a Jew does that, he can't. Said, yeah, because the story was it was a non-Jew. That was the story that happened. So we said over the story. Kufa. Amar Rabba Bar Bachanam Rabbi Yechanan. No, we did not have that before. So we had before Rav Chanan Bar Ami Amar Pedasam Rabbi Yechanan. So when we quote it again, on the side there's a correction. So it's supposed to be Rav Chanan Bar Ami Amar Pedasam Rabbi Yechanan. This animal, that the hair was scorched off the head, right? You're allowed to eat from the ear, even though the non-Jew was the one that ended up cooking it, because that wasn't his intention to cook. No, we don't have a problem of bishalakim by the hot water on the chicken. The problem by the chicken is the salt. It wasn't salted yet. You can't cook it without salting it. Hot water would be considered like cooking it. So that's our problem by the chicken. Over here, how is he scorching it? It must have been salted already. Or maybe it's roasting it itself, and when you roast it, you don't need to salt it. Roasted, you have two options there. Either roasted or covered. Okay. We don't do either of those. You could do it after it's already in the house, because it's already been salted in the factory, but not before it's salted. Okay. Amar Ravina says, Hilka Chayev Kam Deshad Sichsa Latuna, the cover by Yisrael Kra Mikara Shaperdam. Okay. Ravina says, based on the story of the non-Jew that's getting the hair off the animal, he says that if there's a non-Jew throws a peg into the oven, and apparently if you would want to harden a peg, if you needed a peg for some building or something, you wanted to harden it, so you'd have to bake it. Bake it, it would get harder. So he lit the oven and he threw the peg in. Meanwhile, he didn't know that in the oven, in the ground, in the oven, was already a gourd, a pumpkin. It's in it, like by the barbecues, by the fire, they have potatoes wrapped up in tin foil, thrown in on the bottom. Anyway, turned out that the non-Jew ended up cooking the gourd that was in the oven. He didn't know about that. He was busy trying to fix his peg, but he ended up cooking it. So he says, if that's the case, that if his intention wasn't to cook, so then it's kosher. So the same thing should apply here. The Gemara says, Pshita, it's obvious. No, you could have thought he is intending to cook. He's intending to cook his peg. So what? There was something else in there. That's not cooking. That's just drying out. That's hardening it. And his intention isn't cooking. His intention is hardening. And here, something else was happening, which was cooking. So that was totally not his intention. Shure comes from the word akol sharir v'kayam. You ever hear that expression? The ksuba and the documents. It's chayzek. It's strong. This is Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. Okay.
So the same act with a different intention.
Yeah.
Makes all
It
the
makes a
difference.
difference, yeah. Iniach Yisrael basar al gabi kechalav. The Jew put the meat on the coals. Non-Jew comes by, the neighbor comes by, you're making a barbecue. He went inside to get some drinks or something. Non-Jew walks by and says, "Hey, Vay, it's gonna burn." Turns it over. So he turns it over on the grill. So non-Jew did a little cooking here. Still mutter. Echidami, what's the case? Is the case if you say that if he didn't turn over, it would have cooked anyway. So pshita, of course, it's going to be mutter, because what did he do? He didn't cook it; it was cooking. It would have cooked anyway. Eladav, it must be that this was integral. This was if you didn't turn it over, it wouldn't have cooked all the way through, right? It must have been like a nice fat piece. You have to turn it over for it to cook. So the guy did the cooking. Am I mutter? The guy did the cooking. Talking about where if the guy didn't turn it over, it would have taken 2 hours to cook. And the guy turned it over, now it takes only 1 hour to cook. So I could have thought that making it cook faster is considered significant, and it's cooked by the guy. Mashlan comes to tell us that that's not significant, and it's kosher.
Question. This whole concept is like new to me. I mean, we have the concept of lishma, and you have to have kavanah in doing something.
Right.
You have to, all of a sudden, first time I'm hearing that the guy has to have kavanah, because if he didn't have that kavanah, that's what kind of sounds like. It's almost like, if he threw a spear, and he was just practicing spearing, but a guy happened to walk by and it cut his throat, or an animal, and it shafted him. It's not like he killed him or shafted, because that wasn't his kavanah.
Yeah. So I think the answer is that this was a decree to stop us from hanging out with Goyim. Yeah. So if something was done in an abnormal manner, so that he's not even cooking for you, it's not his intention to cook, it just happened to be that it ended up cooking. The decree wasn't on this like anomaly. This was not. It was only on the guy is making a barbecue, you're not let it go. So don't worry, I'm gonna get kosher meat. No, I can't eat it.
We had that with the weddings. Some mishta that they had special foods to serve by
right.
Mordechai, but still not good. Didn't we learn that?
It's a problem. A lot of times you have to be careful when they make breakfast. They have like these little fires with a pot, and they make you eggs, and you have to ask, because sometimes the mashgiach, hopefully, but sometimes it's like, who turned on the fire? It's like it could be a mistake. And eggs, I think we consider are not eaten raw.
Oh, you never saw a farmer.
They eat it raw.
Farmers, some health nuts just for the protein.
I think we consider eggs things that need to be cooked.
Yeah, people eat eggs.
I know, but it's not common enough for it to be considered eaten raw.
I've seen people.
No, you haven't. No, you haven't. We'll call you out.
Yes, I have.
No, we'll talk afterward. You have not.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Video. Now, so we're holding now that Amar Ravasi says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Shu K'Michael Ben Drusai, anything that's cooked, the amount of Michael Ben Drusai, which is either half or a third cooked. Remember Machlekes between who? The bandit, yeah. He was always on the run, so he didn't have time to cook his food. He was always running. So anything that's cooked to that amount, which is the bare minimum of eating your food, bare minimum of cooked. Once it's cooked to that amount, so you don't have to be concerned about the non-Jew cooking it afterwards, because the Jew already cooked it a significant amount that's edible. But if it's not cooked that significant amount, then it is considered that the non-Jew cooked it well, because the non-Jew finished up. You just told me before that it doesn't matter how long it's going to take for it to cook. You didn't tell me that it needs to be Michael Ben Drusai. So this contradicts what we said before. Before you said that speeding up the cooking is nothing. But you didn't say how. Maybe he just put it on and it would take 2 hours. And the non-Jew comes in and makes it and cooks it. He turns it over.
Wait, so who did the Michael Ben?
The Jew. If the Jew does the Michael Ben Drusai, then it's all good.
So if the Jew makes matzah and then the guy comes along and says, I want a little bit more and turns it into chametz, then it's not Pesach? What's the answer to that?
I know, that has nothing to do with this.
Okay.
We're talking about here is that once something is cooked, when you continue cooking it, is that considered an act of cooking?
And be sure.
Sort of like an ein bishul achar bishul thing. So if the Jew cooked it to Michael Ben Drusai, then that's the cutoff point, which makes it cooked. The non-Jew comes and cooks it. So what's he doing? He's nothing. It's already cooked. So the problem over here is that we didn't say that a minute ago. We said that it doesn't matter. We just said that even if speeding up the cooking is nothing, we didn't give this criteria that it needs to be Michael Ben Drusai. So the Gemara answers, Hasam kiven daisve besilta v'shakli avet kam vaisve betanura. But there it's different. But there it was cooked Michael Ben Drusai, but you took it off and you put it in the basket. Non-Jew takes it out of the basket and puts it on. So if it was cooked Michael Ben Drusai, this is like par cooked, right? So if it was cooked Michael Ben Drusai, then the Jew did all the cooking. And he's making it. That's nothing. That's just toasting it. That's seasoning. But if it wasn't cooked Michael Ben Drusai, in this par cooked thing, so then the guy did all the cooking. That's considered. However, over here, the Jew put it on the fire and it's sitting on the fire, and the guy just turned it over, but it would have cooked anyway. It's not in a basket. It's not a par cooked thing that you get it frozen and you put it back in the oven. Okay. That's the difference between the two cases. Tanya Namiyachi was also taught in the Brisa. The Jew puts the meat onto the coals. Now it's the 9 days. It was tofu. The non-Jew comes along and turns it over. You don't have to be concerned. The Jew is busy at shul. He's going to get home. The guy doesn't want his meat to burn. It's not a concern. So if the Jewish woman can put a pot on the fire, the non-Jewish maid can come and stir it. It's in basic Knesset until she comes back from the bathhouse. It means a mikveh. Or from shul. The Jewish woman went to shul to hear the Kriyas HaTorah or something. Birkas Kainim, they like to go for. And it's not a concern because the Jewish woman put it on the fire. It was continue cooking on its own. Ibaylo. Very nice, everything that you said, but let's flip it around. Let's say the non-Jew put it on the fire. Comes along the Jew and turns it over. Or the Jew stirs it, or something like that, right? Amar Rav Nachman by Yitzchak. Rav Nachman says Kal V'Chaimer. It's a Kal V'Chaimer. Gomro b'yadei v'tkechav mutter. Gomro b'yadei shalei kolshkein. If the non-Jew finishes it off, which that's the real cooking. Finish it off to make it ready. And we say that it's permissible because a Jew had a part at the beginning. So if the Jew finishes it off and he makes it ready, for sure it's mutter. That's his Kal V'Chaimer. Is that a good Kal V'Chaimer? I guess it's one way of looking at it. What about the other way of looking at it? The Jew started it. All right. It's Barnami. We also have a statement. Amar Rabba Bar Bachana Rabbi Yechanan. Rabba Bar Bachana says the name Rabbi Yechanan. Amilam Rabba Bar Bachana. Interesting. He has a brother. Vacha Bar Bachana Rabbi Yechanan. Bein Sheniach Evet Kacham V'Hapach Yisrael. Bein Sheniach Yisrael V'Hapach Evet Kacham. It doesn't matter if the non-Jew put it on the fire and the Jew turned it over, or if the Jew put it on the fire and the non-Jew turned it over. It's mutter. The only time would be prohibited is if it starts and ends with the non-Jewish cooking entirely. Amar Ravina. Ravina says Hilchas or Hilkach maybe. There's different versions to this Gemara. Therefore, the halacha is harifta, this bread, the shagar evit kachavim b'afi Yisrael. Shagar means that he sent it, or does it mean he did something in the oven? He fired the oven. Shagar means he fired the oven.
He should have fired the vendor.
Doesn't make up for that last couple.
No, and it wouldn't be any problem with, Baker's oven.
So if the non-Jew fired the oven and the Jew put the bread in, inami shagar Yisrael, or maybe the Jew lit the oven, v'afayid kavim, and the non-Jew put the bread in. Inami shagar v'kicham v'afayid kavim, or maybe the non-Jew lit the oven and the non-Jew put the bread in. Basi Yisrael v'chat b'chiti, but the Jew just came and stoked the coals. Shapir dami, that's going to be acceptable. Tosfos says, Mashinogu lahashlach kesam lataner. This custom that we have, we throw a little twig into the oven and we say that that's good enough. This is actually a difference between the Bavel and Eretz Yisrael, and we follow the Bavel that it's acceptable. You throw a twig into the oven, which the Ramach quotes in Shachnar.
Did they use any of this as part of that for kosher bread in the supermarkets? So,
Kosher bread in the supermarkets is usually not Pas Yisrael.
yeah, I
So
know.
over there you're relying on the other heterim, that if you don't have a baker or maybe it's a palter, those all the
I'm just
heterim.
wondering if this was,
Yeah,
The Jewish bandit part.
Yeah.
They're embarrassing.
I don't think he was. I'm not sure if he was Jewish.
Just a
He
bandit.
was
that made
bandit,
it.
yeah. May have been Jewish, but
And his criteria made it into the level that we're supposed to follow.
yeah, because well, but so Chaim, did you lose the Zoom, or did you just lose me?
I hear you.
Okay.
I hear you.
It went out for a second by me. I had to turn it on again. Okay. We're holding now
I'm good.
by Dag Maliach, right? Yeah. Salted fish.
Okay.
Salted fish. So it doesn't require any cooking. So is the salting of it considered the cooking? So Chizkiah Shari Rabbi Yechanan. So Chizkiah, I think Chizkiah was a son of Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia had a son, Chizkiah. See if that's the same generation as Rabbi Yechanan. Anyway, Chizkiah says that it's mutter. It looks like that's the halacha. And Rabbi Yechanan says that it's aser. Beit tzluya. What about a roasted egg? Now, this is interesting. Because an egg, I mean, you're not eating it raw and you're roasting it. Bar Kapara Shari. Bar Kapara says that it's mutter, even though a non-Jew roasted it. Rabbi Yechanan says it's aser. Now, why does Bar Kapara say it's mutter? Rashi says because the non-Jew didn't touch the food. It has a shell over it. Isn't that interesting? Like as if there's a problem with touching the food. But what does that have to do with touching the food? Yeah, but what does that have to do with the problem is cooking? You're going to eat his food. What does that have to do with if he can touch it or not? I know, but our concern over here with Bishalakim was not that he's going to mix in non-kosher food. Unless that Rashi before that said that, that was my concern. Okay, whatever the case is, Bar Kapar says it's mutter. Yasser Rav Dimi Amar, and Rav Dimi came.
Oh, right, they have here the same.
And it's the son of Rav Chia.
Doesn't say that, because this one only
Let me
has
see the map.
students.
Let
It doesn't
Rabbi
show-
Smith make that call.
It doesn't show
Let Rabbi
who's
Smith.
the son, it shows the student of. I found Chizkiah on the genealogy chart, which is a few pages.
No, here.
before. Oh,
You're talking about this Chizkiah here? Those lines, those lines mean it's the son.
he
Straight,
says,
Rav Chia's son is
oh,
Chizkiah.
Chizkiah,
That means it's his son.
oh, okay.
And the straight lines are the students. Okay. Yasser Rav Dimi, was there another Chizkiah?
No, I didn't see that there, so they have a
Let's.
chart here, so I looked up his name.
Okay, Yasser Rav Dimi, Rav Dimi has a different tradition, and in his tradition, he has Chizkiah and Bar Kapara saying that it's mutter. Both of them are mutter. We had Dag Maliyah Chizkiah said was mutter, and Beit Tzluya Bar Kapara said was mutter. He puts together Dag Maliyah and Beit Tzluya that Chizkiah and Bar Kapara say that it's mutter, and Rabbi Yechanan says that they're both aser. Okay, Rabbi Yechanan saying they're both aser, that we have, but we didn't have both of them saying the egg and the salted fish together. We didn't have them both saying both. And Rav Dimi does have that. Rav Chia Parva, I hope it has to do with Parav. Rav Chia, I guess he comes from a place called Parva. Iklala Bei Reish Galusa came to the Reish Galusa's house. Amrlei, they said to him, Beitzat Sliyamai, what's the halacha if a non-Jew roasts an egg for you? Can you eat it? Amalahu, he responded, Chizkiah Bar Kapara Shara, Rabbi Yechanan Aser. Chizkiah and Bar Kapara say that it's allowed. He knows this, Rav Chia Parva knows what he's saying. Chizkiah and Bar Kapara allow it. And Rabbi Yechanan Aser, Vein Dor Shalach Makom Sam, you don't have to worry about Rabbi Yechanan because you have 2 against 1. Amalu Rav Zvid said to them, Leit Tzatzisole, don't listen to Rav Chia Parva. Hachiyam Rabaya, Abaya says, Hilchas HaKavasei Rabbi Yechanan. You have to pass like Rabbi Yechanan. Ashku Neguta Dechala Benach Nafshe. They gave him, they gave Rav Zvid some vinegar to drink, and he died.
Poison?
Must have been some poison, something.
I'm so worried when people are at home.
They didn't like the way he paskin. So,
Or an egg.
yeah. I remember in another place in Gittin, where the people of the Reish Galusa, they tried to get one of the sages to fall in a pit. They put a mat over it or something you shouldn't see.
But these are the good guys too.
Yeah, apparently the household wasn't as good as this. And then there was something else in Chulin also. Someone, I think he had told them to wait too long after meat and milk, and I think they killed him also. They don't mess.
Don't stop over.
Anyway,
I saw this last night on Israeli TV. I mean, made up TV. So
Afterwards,
they were protecting. No, they were
Chaim Druin's
protecting
on the phone.
the Israeli Mr.
Chaim Druin's on the phone. He's gonna get
It's
so mad
okay.
at you.
We're protecting a state witness, and all of a sudden, and
Can Can we
FBI
move
wasn't
on? Let's move on.
Wait,
Chaim, I'm so
the
sorry.
delivery guy delivers hummus and trina, and the FBI goes, no, he was starting to beat up, and the Mr. Ash says, what do you want? He's delivering food. So he says,
I'm so
no,
sorry.
you taste it. He made the delivery guy taste it. Next thing you know, the delivery guy ends up crashing. He was poisoned, and the guy, the witness, had tasted.
Sorry,
Chaim.
Kafrisen are
Hard work. It's hard work.
Hard work. Kafrisen are capers. Which part of the caper? It's the peel of the caper berry. Remember in Hilchos Brachas, Kafrisen is like takes up half of the topic over there. Kafleites. These are leeks, I think. This is karti. Now, capricin apparently could be eaten raw, and leeks could also be eaten raw. Maybe the bottoms, not the green part. Hamtalia. No idea. Gemara's going to explain soon. Vachamen, this just means hot water. Vaklayas, toasted vegetables, toasted grains. Vaklayas shalahen, klayas of the all of this of the non-Jews. Mutarin, you're allowed to eat. It looks like because they're eaten raw or because it's not changed. Eitzatzluya, a roasted egg, asura. That's after if a non-Jew roasted. Shemen, what about oil? Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, Bestina Nimna Olav V'Tirua, they permitted it. Tanya was starting a brisa. He amatalia, he pashlaya, he shiata. Well, this is all the same thing. If you don't know what that hamtalaya is, then maybe you know what pashlaya is. If you don't know what pashlaya is, then maybe you know what shiata. The Gemara doesn't know any. It says my shiata. What is shiata? So Amar Rabba Bar Bachana Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Bachana says name Rabbi Yechanan. It's already 40 years since this story happened. That came out of Egypt. Rabbi Bar Bachana Didei Amar. Rabbi Bar Bachana himself says. He's saying in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. Was he arguing? No, he said it that he heard from Rabbi Yechanan 20 years earlier. When Rabbi Yechanan said it, Rabbi Yechanan was saying that this happened 40 years ago. When Rabbi Bachana said it over, he said it happened 60 years ago. Like that each is talking about when they were saying it over. Maisu bizra de karpasa. They took some seeds of karpas. Karpas, what is karpas? Lettuce. And ubizra de kitna, and they also took seeds, flax seeds. Ubizra de shavlilta. Shavlilta is fenugreek. I think, yeah, it's also is fenugreek. And they soaked it all together in lukewarm water. And they left it there until it started to sprout. They brought a new barrel. They filled the barrel with water. They soaked in it. Gargishta sounds like dirt. Medapkin Bay, the island of Beibani, and they stuck these grains that were sprouting into this dirt. And they went into the bathhouse. Adanafka, by the time they got out of the bathhouse, it was sprouting. It was va'achli minei kiri mibinse the reish va'achli minayu. They ate from it. So in other words, I guess like how long does the mikveh take? It takes 20 minutes, an hour, whatever it is. By the time they got out, their body was they wanted to, I guess, cool down. They ate from these things. The kairi mibinse the rishayo. They were cold from the hair on their head, atufra the kari till the nails on their feet. So, what are we saying over here? This is telling me what himtalia is, which is a it's mutter. It wasn't cooked at all. Right? Say it's mutter. Okay. Amar Rav Ashi, Amali Rav Chanina. Rav Ashi says Rav Chanina told me. This really Rav Chanina? Rav Ashi heard from Rav Chanina. He says Milan. He says it's all false. What if it's Rav Ashi? There's another version of it. Rav Ashi is many years later. Rav Ashi. And some say that it was just by magical words, it was by some incantation, because it's impossible for it to sprout so fast. Okay. This is like a date mash. They're gonna turn it into beer. Something, or a date fermented drink.
You ever had the beer?
No, should we get some? You've had?
Oh, was I gonna mess it up?
Have you ever had beer? I don't drink.
So Shalev de Kechavim, it's made by a non-Jew. Shuchmuch Chamen. He heated up the hot water I guess if we use hot water in it. The Yerigdel in a big pot, it's usher. Yerikatan in a small pot, it's mutter. Is a Yerikatan? What do you mean a small pot, it's mutter? What type of small pot? If this bird, a wild small bird, maybe like a finch or something, can't fit into the top of the pot, then you don't have to worry about anything else getting in there. It's for sure kosher because nothing else could fit through this was like a beaker, like the scientist things where they can't get anything in. But so the Gemara says, Dilma admi v'ale. Maybe he cut up something treif and put it in. It has to be so small that even the head of this little bird can't even fit in. So you'll never be able to fit something non-kosher in there. But we have another brayse that says, it's mutter. Why are you telling me there's a problem with his pots? We have another source that says that it's mutter, even if it's a big pot. It says like kasha, it's not a problem because depends. One opinion says we have a rule that stam kelamin b'nei yaman. Probably the pot wasn't used in the last 24 hours. That's a general rule, unless it's a commercial place. In the house, most of your dishes have not been used in the last 24 hours. You have dishes, but most of them haven't been used. So we have an assumption that it's been 24 hours since the pot was used before you used it now, right? So therefore, if you hold nice and tam lifgam, once it's 24 hours, then it's mutter. So then that's why we said it's mutter. But this is the opinion. Ha command nice tam lifgam aser. Ha command amar nice and tam lifgam is mutter, and that's why we have this opinion that says that it's allowed even if it's a big pot. Amar Rav Sheshes. Sheshes says, "Hi mishcha shlika dharma." This cooked oil of Aramean, it's aser. Can't use it. Rav Safra says, what are you worried about? Are you worried about maybe there's wine that went into the oil, Mr. Sorry? That doesn't even taste good. That goes bad. So that's not a problem. If the things that don't give a good taste are just bottle. If it's because that the non-Jew cooked it, but oil doesn't need to be cooked. It could be eaten raw, the oil. You don't need to cook the oil. Maybe it's the flavor in the pot. Then it's nice and tam lifgam. It's giving a nice and tam. It's giving a flavor, lifgam, like a negative flavor, spoiled flavor. So therefore, it's going to be mutter. So Rav Safra would be arguing with Rav Sheshes here, saying that nice and tam lifgam is mutter. Boy, my name is Rabasi. They asked Rabasi the following question: Hani ahini shliki dharma. These cooked dates. Everything is dates. That was cooked by an non-Jew. What's the din? If they're very sweet, then of course the vade shari, because you can eat them raw. Mariri, if these dates are bitter and you have to cook them to make them sweet, that's also not a shaila, because the vade asiri, because it's definitely prohibited. Only way to eat them is to cook them. The question was if they're in the middle somewhere. You can eat them raw, but they're not so great. When you cook them, they get better. So what's going to be the din? Amalahu. So who's answering this? Rav Asi is answering. Why are you asking the question? The Rebbe Aser. Rebbe said that it's Aser. Manu, and who's Rebbe? Levi. It's Levi. Levi was the teacher that said that it's Aser to have these dates that are cooked by a non-Jew. Shasisa. This is a flour that's cooked. It's like a farina of some sort. But farina is wheat. This doesn't have to be wheat. This could be also lentil flour. We made out of.
Wasn't Levi in
Levi.
These guys are in
Levi is in is a student of Rebbe. Maybe he got a job as when he became a rabbi.
I have Levi here because I have a Levi here whose son was Rabbi Yeshua, but that makes sense.
Right. I think it's the same person.
No, because and that explains why we're all talking about dates, because if they're all in Eretz Yisrael,
It's a lot of dates.
a lot of dates. It was above over.
I don't know if they have dates in Babel.
That's what I'm saying.
But
I
I-
mean, for sure, heritage show.
Right. I think they did. There's a lot of talk about dates. Okay. A lot of talk about palm trees. In the Gemara, yeah. Probably dates. She saw this type of flower. Rav Shari. Rav says that it's permissible. You don't have to worry about non-Jewish, non-kosher wine getting in there or something. And Avodah Shmuel Valevi, Shmuel's father, he's called Avodah Shmuel, and Levi, they say that it's usher. Okay. If the flour was wheat flour, barley flour, everyone agrees that it's mutter. Why? Because they didn't need to add anything into it. The taflachi, the challah, it was lentil flour where they need to add some vinegar in it. Because the vinegar came from wine. And everyone say that it's usher. Kipligi betalfachi demaya, where it was lentil flour, but they had water in it instead of the vinegar. One says that you make a decree. Sometimes they use vinegars. You have to say that it's usher. Another one says that we don't make a decree. If it had the lentil flour with water, everyone says it's usher. The machlekes here is with the wheat flour, where you don't need to add anything in. One says that we make a gzeira because of the lentil flour. Another opinion says we don't make a gzeira. Amar Rav. Rav says, Mini Shesisa Shadar Barzilai Giladi LeDavid. But when one of the times David was running away, was running from Absalom, I think, from his son. So Barzilai Giladi came out to help him. And David was very grateful. Barzilai Giladi, when he passed away, he told Shlomo, make sure that Bnei Barzilai should always come to your table. Shows how he helped me when I was running away. So what did he help him with? He brought him food. So it says, Barzilai Giladi brought food to David. He gave him two types of shisisa. It says mishkav, bedding, the sufis and bowls, the kliyotzer, pottery, chitim, wheat, usairim, and barley, v'kemach, and flour, v'kali, toasted grain, full beans, v'adashim, and lentils, v'kali, and toasted grain. That's kali twice. Hashtu the mafki tzani. Okay, sorry. That's what that was Rav's statement. Now the Gemara says that now they bring tzani means like piles and piles. Was it barrels and barrels of this food? This is Yisa. The shuki de Nardoi to the marketplace in Nardoi. Lest the chashla the Avodah Shmuel Levi, and no one's concerned about Abu and the Shmuel and Levi's opinion that there may be a decree on it that says that it's usher. Everyone's eating it. Okay. This is a toasted grain cereal type thing. Sure. Yeah. Vashim Shadak Lasam Yayin, pickles, pickled food that they would put wine into it, a little bit of wine into the pickles. This is where, when did we say that it's usher? Over there it says that it's usher to eat, but it's not usher bana. So this is only if that was the way of doing it off the yadua. But if you know that there's wine in it, usher afila bana, then you can't even have benefit from it. Having benefit means you can't give it to a friend, you can't give it to an animal, you can't sell it. Gemara says, if you go back, not this past Mishnah, if you go back to the Mishnah before this, where we said the following are Asr Ba'ana. One of the things in here was, we said Murius. According to Reb Meir, where was this? Murius and cheese of a non-Jew, it's Asr Ba'ana according to Reb Meir, and the Chacham say it's not Asr Ba'ana. Say 1 second. Murius, what was the problem with Murius? There was a concern that maybe wine was mixed into it. So we're saying over here that that there was wine mixed in. Now, here we say if there's wine mixed in, it's asur ba'ana. But the sages by Moria said that it's mutter ba'ana, even though wine was mixed in. Moria answers, Pasam over there, la vuri zuama. That was taking away a bad smell or a bad taste from the fish. But in hachal lemetuke taima, but here you're actually getting the flavor from it. And you add in here by this pickles, different than the fish, because here when you get the wine in it, you're actually getting the flavor. Rabbi Yechanan says even if you know that there's wine in it, it's also mutter ba'ana. So why did Reb Meir say, like what's Reb Meir going to say over here? Why did Reb Meir say over there it's asur ba'ana? It says Hasam, Yediyah Mamash. You have to see, you have to understand that there's a difference here. Over here, you're eating the pickles and you're not drinking the brine from the pickles. But there, you're eating the fish oil with the whole thing is the brine, the moyas. So over there, when there's wine in it, so you're eating the wine. Over here, there's wine in it, but you're not eating that part. That's just like a flavor that comes to it. Because it's not that you're not eating the wine itself, so we just say that it's prohibited to eat, but not that it's asur ba'ana. Okay? Tris trufa, tir shem badaga. Here's different types of fish chopped up, but there's brine that doesn't have a certain fish in it that's only in kosher brine. And then there was chilek. Chilek was a fish, a small fish that loses its scale. Loses its scale when it's when it gets no, it gets its scales when it's older. I think. Okay, so it goes like this. My chilek. What is chilek? Rav Nachman Barabba. Rav Nachman Barabba says the name of Rav Zeus Sultanis. This is Sultanis fish. Pneima asura. Why did we say that you can't eat it with from a non-Jew? Pnei she'ervuna oila ima. How do you translate that? Because it's mixed with other fish. Non-kosher fish come together with it. Oh, there's a picture over here. It's a swordfish.
Swordfish lose their scales.
What is
I
that?
have here Oven's prawn.
Oh, some suggest it's a type of sardine. The swordfish is coming up. That's coming up soon. Okay. Taner Rabbanon, Tzad in a Brisa. Ein layachshav. If it doesn't have the scales now, but it's going to grow them when it matures. So Kagoin has sultanis, for example, the sultanis fish for Afitz. Afitz is they don't just give me a Greek word. It's a small type of fish. Harizim mutter, then it's permissible because if it's gonna have the scales even later, it's fine. If it has the scales now, but as it comes out of the sea, it shakes itself so much that it drops the scales. Kunis, ba'apunis, ketaspitayas, ba'achspitayas, ba'atunis. All of those are mutter. So here, the akunis, it says, Scumber Collius S, Atlantic chub mackerel. And the Cataspatius is a swordfish.
Wow, sounds about like
Tunis is a tuna fish. The tuna doesn't have scales on it when you take it out. When you get a slice of tuna, it looks smooth, or it's there's no scales on it. Where'd the scales go?
chicken of the sea.
Is that the name of a tuna bread? Achres Rabavo Bekisri. Rabavo made an announcement in Kisri, that's where Rabavo lived. There's Kirve Dugim, the inners of fish, the Ubran, that must mean the eggs, the fish eggs. The Kachim Mikaladam, you could buy them from anyone, Chaskasim Menabam, Ella, Plusa of Aspamia. It's assumed that it's coming from Plusa and Aspamia. And Plusa and Aspamia don't have non-kosher fish in those waters. Just like Abaya said, Tzachanta de Bavnara, this fish called Tzachanta. Do they have a name for that? Chilek? Tzachanta is Chilek. Yeah, Rashi says it's Chilek. And what was Chilek? Chilek was Sultanas. What was Sultanas? Sardines, probably. Okay, so he says that Tzachanta that comes from the river Bav, William, no, kidding. Sharia, it's permissible. My time, why is it permissible? Even Mishum Deredifimai was a problem over there that maybe you could have non-kosher fish that are mixed in. That was our concern, right? How do you know that it's that you don't have the non-kosher fish? So it says no. In that river, there's no non-kosher fish. Why? Ilema, is it because Mishum Deredifimai that the water is very strong currents? By the Tamikim Leslie Chutashidra beduch the dirty maybe we'll say like this, that the water is a strong current there. And since the non-kosher fish don't have a spine, so they can't live in those waters. So therefore, there's only the kosher fish that are there. It says, but that's not true. We know that they can live in waters that have a strong current even without a spine. It must mean that the waters are overly salty. By dagtamikim, unless they kill fish, maybe because the non-kosher fish, it doesn't have the scales. So in a place where the water is very salty, it can't live there. It says so maybe that's why this is mutter in the river Bab. It says but we know that they can live in salty waters, even though they don't have scales. The answer is because the bottom of the dirt, the mud in this river the non-kosher fish don't lay their eggs on that. So therefore, there's no non-kosher fish in these waters. But this is a salt water.
We in general think of that because, but when the river is approaching like the ocean, you have the area where
There's mix. The river itself is fresh water, it just mixes when it gets to the ocean.
it usually comes from mountain.
I don't know. The Amazon is fresh water.
My brain, every time I think
Google if there's any rivers that are salt water. You want me to ask you? Siri.
Are there any
Are
salt
there
water?
any rivers that are salt water?
Yeah, the rivers you cry me a river, bro. Salty tears.
It's answering what I said. The most extensive brackish water habitats worldwide. First, yes, there are rivers with salt water. The most extensive brackish water habitats worldwide are estuaries where a river meets the sea.
Yeah.
Because that's where the salt.
Okay.
It's a Keys River.
So, where are we holding? Amar Ravina. Ravina says, you just told me that you can eat the chilek fish, the tzachanta fish, the sardines from Bab. However, now we have a problem. Nowadays, kashafchi beinar guzav and gamda asiri. Now you have a problem because, rivers can change their the way they flow, and now there's other waters that are flowing into that river, and those waters do have the non-kosher fish growing in them. So what's going to happen is that those waters can come. Okay. Let me use this Gemara. It's going to have some difficult words. You want an English Gemara? You want a regular Gemara? So, yeah, let me.
Oh, name selected. Wow. I put that on eBay.
Holding on. Daf Lamed Tes, page 39. Okay, so we did the that now it's us. Amar Abaya, yeah, is that what we're holding? Amar Abaya, Abaya says, "Hi Chamra Diyama, this creature that's called the sea donkey. Sorry, that's and meaning sea donkey is used to refer to the Atlantic cod. Interesting. Tura Diyama, the ox of the sea. However, that's going to be aser. V'simanech, if you want to remember this, tamei tar tamei. The donkey of the sea is kosher. The ox of the sea is tamei. Amar Ravashi. Ravashi says, Shvar there's a fish called Svar Nuna. Shari, that's permissible. Kedash Nuna, that's aser. Simanech, if you want to remember that it's aser. Kodesh LaHashem. Remember the Kodesh LaHashem. Kodesh. The Kodesh one is aser. It's not for humans. Ikadamri Kvar Nuna aser. Some say that the fish called Kvar Nuna is aser. Simanech, if you want to remember this, Kivrei Goyim. You just remember the grave of a Gentile. Means it's aser. You can't eat it. Rabbi Akiva. This is a species of ray fish. So they have horn-like protrusions in their heads. Then they explain the name sea ox. Rabbi Akiva Ikla Leginzik. He came to a place called Ginzik. They brought a certain fish that was similar to the chipusha, which was a non-kosher fish. He put it in a basket. And he covered it in a basket. He saw that there were scales on the basket because it was trying to it was, what's it called, flapping around, thrashing around, and so the scales and he saw, okay, so it's mutter. Ravashi Klal Tamduria. Ravashi came to a place called Tamduria. I said, they brought him this fish. It was similar to the tzleifcha fish. This is an eel. Well, Nakte Lahadiyayim. He took it out into the sunlight, and Chazadav Beitzimchi V'Shari saw that there were scales on it, and thin scales, and so he allowed it. Ravashi Ikla Lahu Asr. Ravashi came to a place. Aisla Kami Nuna, Davidamala Shafr Nuna. They brought him a fish that was similar to the Shafr Nuna. Chafye B'Mishichle Chivri. He covered it in a white vessel. And Chazibek Kilfe V'Shari, he was able to see the scales on it because of the white background. Rabbi Barbachana Ikla LaAkra de Agma. He came to a place called Akra de Agma. Rabbi Barbachana Kribli Tzachanta. They brought him the Tzachanta fish. This was the small fish that we said before, the chilik fish. And Shamilu Gavra Davikar Le Bati. You heard someone calling it. Can you pass the Bati? Now Bati is a type of this ray fish. These are cartilaginous fish related to sharks. Okay, so Amar, he said, Rabbi Barbachana said to himself, "Mida kakari le bati shmamina davartam yaspe." They're calling it bati, then it's probably not kosher. Le'achamini, they didn't eat it. Tzafra, in the morning, Iyanba, he looked in, he examined the fish. Ashkach be davartame. He found that there was a non-kosher food in it. There was something non-kosher. So he said about himself, that no sin happens to a tzaddik.
That's why you can paddleboard
You play association? Okay. Kairat shel chiltas. So we'll go a little further. Kairat shel chiltas. The Mishnah taught that a chiltas, a piece of chiltas, you're not allowed to eat it, but it's mutter bana. My time, what's the problem? Why should it be aser? It's just a vegetable. It says mishum demafseke le sakina because they cut it with a knife. So what? The knife was used a long time ago. So we said that anything after 24 hours doesn't have the flavor. So it right? We didn't say. It's a very we'll see in a minute. It's a sharp food. So when it explains that I give chorfei de chiltisa, chalile shamnunisa, v'habli knetzam l'shvach aser. Since even though bad flavors don't make something treif, because they become bottled, because this chiltis is so sharp, so the bad flavor in the sharpness actually tastes good. So therefore, it's going to be considered nisan tam l'shvach, and it's going to be aser. That's why we're more strict about cutting lemons and cutting sharp foods with the knife, because that's going to be more the sharpness. There's two parts to it. The sharpness pulls out the flavor, and the sharpness also can make the flavor for good. Avdei the Rabbi Levi, Mezabin Chiltisa. There was a non-Jewish slave of Rabbi Levi that was selling chiltis. Sorry? No, this is a Rabbi Levi. The Rabbi Levi, they're usually Levi's called Levi. When Rabbi Levi passed away, I said, "Come to Rabbi Yochanan," and they came to Rabbi Yochanan. Amalei, Malam Mizvan Minei. Can we buy from this non-Jewish slave of Rabbi Levi? Amalu Abdishal Chaver Eka Chaver. Says yes, a slave of a Chaver, someone that's careful with mitzvahs, has the same status as a Chaver. You can still buy from him. Rav Huna bar Menyumi zamt chilta miyinshi the basi der Rav Amram Chasida. Rav Huna bar Menyumi, he bought chelas from Rav Amram Chasida's wife. It's interesting because Rav Amram Chasida, the Gemara in Sukkah tells us that his wife wore tzitzis. Anyway, Asal Kamid Rav Yosef comes to Rav Yosef. He didn't know if he's allowed to do this. You see, there's a problem with chelas because there's some chelas that instead of coming from an animal, it comes from a plant. It's called kala ilan. From a plant, and it's not kosher for a chelas. So you need a mashkiach to know. He bought it from a woman. He wasn't sure. Is it acceptable? It came to Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef doesn't know the answer. Pagabei Chanan Chayta. So Chanan Chayta happened to meet Rav Huna that had this question. Amalei Yosef Anya Minole. Where would poor Yosef have known the answer to this question? Now, why is he calling them that? Maybe the commentary here in this says that maybe because Rabbi Yosef went blind, or maybe he forgot his learning. So that's why he's calling him poor Yosef. He says, "B'didi I actually had a story. There's Vini Tcheltem Yen Shebesi de Rabbana Achua de Rabbi Chia bar Abba. I bought chelas from the wife of Rabbana, the brother of Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Rabbana. Asla Kami de Rav Matana. I came to Rav Matana, or Rav Masna. Le'av Yadi, he didn't know the answer. Asla Kami de Rav Yehuda Me'agronia. I came to Rav Yehuda Me'agronia. Amalei Nafalta Liyad Hachem Shmuel. He says, "You're lucky." Because it turns out, Hachem Shmuel, I know the answer. Shmuel said, "Eishes chaver, yek chaver," that you're allowed to buy the wife of a chaver is considered like a chaver. So it's good enough. Tanina lahad Tana Rabbanan. We learned in a Mishnah what the sages taught in a Brisa. Eishes chaver, ariel kachaver. Brisa says that the wife of a chaver is just like a chaver. Abdishal chaver, kachaver. Even the slave of a chaver is like a chaver. Chaver shemes. Let's say the chaver passed away. So the wife and the family of the chaver have the same status that they used to until we find out that they don't. It's innocent until proven guilty. In any courtyard sells tchelas, we consider it kosher until we find out that it's not. Let's say there's the wife of an ignoramus that ends up getting married to, I guess maybe she's a widow, and then she gets married to a chaver, Talmud Chacham, Or the daughter of an ignorant Amsek gets married to a Talmud Chacham. Or the slave of an ignorant Amsek gets sold to a Chaver. If you want to change their status, they have to get a new Chaver license. They have to go through the whole process to make sure that they pass the Chaver test. What about the opposite? Let's say there was a widow of a Talmud Chacham, and she's getting married to an Amaretz, or the daughter of a Talmud Chacham that's getting married to an Amaretz, or the slave of a Chaver that's purchased by an Amaretz. They don't need to accept on themselves. We assume that they keep their old customs like they had originally, that when they worked or were owned by the family. Rabbi Yehuda says no. He argues with Rameir. He says now that they changed homes, they have to take a new test to see if they're going to be trusted regarding Meiser and Truma, and regarding Tumantara. We have a story of a woman that was married to a Talmud Chacham. Basically, she was so nice, she would tie the tefillin on his arm. Mrs. Lameiches, I guess he passed away. And she married a tax collector. Basically, shares like Tishri Meiches al Yadai. And she would tie the tax seals on his hand. That, in other words, yeah, she's a good wife, she does what she's supposed to do, but she's going to do whatever her husband wants her to do, which is now going to be different than the way she was before. That was Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, as opposed to Rabbi Meir. Let's leave it over here.
Oh, sorry.
I'm a Rav.
Last week, he would tie the tax receipts on his
If
hand.
there
It is
was a-
important that you keep a close watch on your baggage and carry-on items. Do not
Okay. Moshe, it sounded like you just landed. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. On mute.
I was on a flight at 5:15 a.m. and now I'm waiting for my next flight.
Note that all bags are subject
Okay.
to search.
Way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, so
And on Friday, again, I was on the plane at already at 4:20. We took off.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say wow. Also, it's
We need to get you a private jet.
Do you understand what?
Chaim, get him a private jet.
yeah. I'm working on it. I need some sponsors.
Chaim Druin.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for that.
Okay. Hatzlacha.
Yeah, have a good day.
Have a good day, everyone.
Good week.